Okay, station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston Station, we're ready for the event.
U.S. Department of Education, this is Houston. Please call station for a voice check. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Arne, Duncan, and we have some fantastic students here from Deal Middle School and Hart Middle School. We're at the Department of Education in Washington, D.C. Do you hear me okay?
We have you loud and clear. Welcome aboard the International Space Station.
Thanks so much, and welcome to the crew of the International Space Station, Commander Wheelock, Flight Engineer Walker, and Flight Engineer Kelly. Our students are ready and eager to hear from you. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And the first question will come from Sophia Clayman of Deal Middle School. And Sophia, you're up.
My name is Sophia, and my question is for Doug Wheelock. What kind of research are you working on, and how will it help us understand our planet and the universe?
Hi, Sophia. Well, that's a great question, and that's the purpose, the prime purpose while we're here on the space station is to operate these laboratories. We have at any one given time over 130 experiments going on board. We're studying the Earth, studying space, studying our bodies and our body's reaction to being in space and long duration, and trying to learn a little bit more about material development and development of medicine and pharmaceuticals and things like this. And so what we're trying to do is operate these laboratories in the absence of gravity. And when we take gravity out of the equation, sometimes some wonderful things happen. Things like crystals grow in 3-dimension now rather than in 2-dimension like we have on Earth. And we can, through this process, develop new processes of developing materials and developing pharmaceuticals to help us in the areas of medicine. And also, in the process of doing that, we're staying long duration on board the space station, sort of replicating a transit time to another body in our solar system, be it Mars or the Moon or an asteroid or something. And so we're using ourselves as test subjects as well to determine how we can survive and thrive in an environment away from Earth's gravity for a long period of time.
Thank you.
My name is Gary, and my question is for Shannon Walker. How do you communicate with other crew members if people are from different countries?
Gary, that's a good question. One thing we have to do is learn different languages. Another thing is we generally speak English aboard the space station. But I can assure you, when I was studying in Russia to be the co-pilot of the Soyuz, I had to learn the Russian language so I could communicate with the Russian control center in Russian. So basically, we learn lots of different languages.
My name is Alex, and my question is for Scott Kelly. Do you have any free time? And if so, what do you do to entertain yourself?
Well, hi, Alex. We do have a little bit of free time. You know, we're normally very busy up here, and most of our working day, and even sometime in the evenings and on the weekends, is spent working because there's so much to do. But on those occasions where we do have some free time, there are certain things we do to entertain ourselves. One, and I think most space stations crew members would agree, the best one is actually to look out at planet Earth, because it is so truly beautiful from this vantage point. And because we fly around it every 90 minutes, we get to experience seeing places on Earth from a distance that we might not get to experience if we travel there someday. And it's a really interesting perspective to look at Earth above the atmosphere. It's a very, very beautiful planet, and we're all fortunate to have it. Also, we have to exercise a lot on board, and most crew members really enjoy doing that because normally flying around in microgravity, you don't get a whole lot of exercise like you might, just walking around on Earth. So exercise becomes very important to us. We have a bunch of movies we can watch. We listen to music, read. So a lot of the things that you would do on Earth for entertainment, we also do here on the International Space Station.
My name is Deontay, and my question is for Doug Wheelock. What is the International Space Station meant to accomplish?
Hi, Deontay. Well, that's a very good question. And that's our primary purpose here is to operate this laboratory. We're a world-class laboratory, and we offer a unique environment up here. Inside of the station, we can offer an environment where we remove gravity from the equation in all these scientific studies and in the areas of research of pharmaceuticals, medical, biological experiments, and things like this. And also, we have outside of the space station means to conduct experiments out in the vacuum of space as well. So we're gathering all this science for our scientists on the Earth, and plan to return great scientific discoveries in the area of increased or more efficient processes, better materials, better pharmaceuticals to help our life on Earth be much, much better.
My name is Gus Marquand, and my question for Shannon Walker, and my question is for Shannon Walker. How is food on Earth different from food in space?
Yeah, Doug just said it was tastier. In some sense, that's true. The main difference between food on Earth and food in space is so much of what we have up here is dehydrated. It takes a lot of fuel to get water up into space because water is actually relatively heavy. So we remove the water on the ground and launch the food, which is dehydrated, into space. So that is one of the biggest differences that we have. And so you ask, well, what do you do? We've got water up here. Where does that come from if we're not launching it? We actually make water. When the shuttle is attached to the station, we can get water from the shuttle because they make that as a product for making electricity on the shuttle. So we get water from the shuttle, and then we also make water here on the space station.
My name is Nicholas, and my question is for Scott Kelly. Have you ever had a problem or been injured while in space?
I think your question was, have we ever had any problems here in space, like potentially maybe a problem with a system or with one of the crew members medically. We do occasionally have problems with the systems. Just about an hour ago, we had a warning go off in the Russian segment of the system of the space station that said there was a low level of oxygen in the Russian what's called the FGB, or functional cargo block. It's one of the Russian modules, and it said the oxygen was very, very low, like maybe 10% of what it should normally be. And fortunately, that wasn't a real emergency. It was just a sensor, but we do have more serious things happen at times. Before I got here, we had a failure of a pump that's very important to cooling the outside of the space station, and so we do occasionally have things go wrong, but we have ways to respond to those, and so far we've been pretty good at it.
My name is Will, and my question is for Doug Wheelock. What is the most beautiful thing you have ever seen from space?
Well, that's a great question, and the most beautiful thing is my crewmate Shannon. Well, actually, I think that probably everyone would agree. The most beautiful thing that we can see from the space station is our planet, and of course, there are so many different things to see about our planet, both in daytime and nighttime. You know, when I first came up here, I thought, and I first got a chance to look at the Earth. The Earth is like an explosion of color in this big sea of darkness that's space that we know, and what I thought about what it would be like to go into eclipse and come on the backside of the Earth when the Earth was in darkness. That I thought, well, probably it would just blend in with the darkness of deep space. But no, the Earth at night as well is just alive with life and with motion, and we get to see lightning and aurora and city lights, and it's just absolutely beautiful. So I'll have to say that. Of my most beautiful sight so far of the Earth has been back a couple of months ago. I believe it was in July or August. We were able to see the southern lights, the aurora over the South Pole, and we actually had a night where the moon was full and the sun was coming up, and we had this beautiful aurora, and the moon was shining off the aurora, as was the sun, the rising sun, and so it was pretty dramatic and just a beautiful picture out the window, and we all were glued to the window that night.
My name is Shaquana, and my question is for Shannon Walker. Do you feel like your personality or the way you think changes while you are in space?
Shaquana, that is a very interesting question, and to be honest, I've never really thought about it. I think I'd have to ask my crewmates to see if they think that I have changed while I've been in space. I don't think I've changed, or my personality have changed, or how I think through things has changed, but I think my crewmates would probably be the final judge of that.
My name is Amilka Hudson, and my question is for Scott Kelly. Do you feel like your job is dangerous?
Well, flying in space is somewhat dangerous. We're flying around the Earth at 17,500 miles an hour in a almost near vacuum, and to get here requires a incredible amount of energy to get going that fast, and to get home, we have to remove that energy out of the vehicle, whether it's a Soyuz or a space shuttle. So, it is risky and somewhat dangerous, but, the different government agencies, whether it's NASA or the other partners on the International Space Station, work really, really hard to make it as safe as we possibly can. So, it has risk, but normally doing great things have always involved risk. So, even though it's dangerous, I'm happy and proud to be a part of it.
My name is Ayana, and my question is for Doug Wheelock. How does your body feel in space, and is it very different from on Earth?
Hi, Ayana. Yes, it is very different than on Earth, and it actually feels a little strange when you first get here to space. Your body, of course, everything is floating, and so in the fluid in your inner ear sort of pulls and stops the rotation, and so it's so your sense of balance and up and down is a little bit confused. And so the first couple of days up here in space, it's a little confusing. It can be a little disorienting, especially when you're coming into a module. You see around us here, we've got experiments on the ceiling, on the floor, on the walls. It doesn't matter where because we have no gravity, so we can use all the available surface space here. And when you come into a module, say upside down or something like that, it would be a little bit misorienting at first. And so, but your body adapts, and you know, very, very simple things are hard at first. Brushing your teeth, drinking water out, or some sort of drink out of a bag, eating food, sleeping. You know, all these are very, very simple things that we don't think about on Earth, but you have to rethink those things and relearn how to do those things once you come to space. And now, after being here for so many days and so many weeks and months, it's hard to think back and remember life with gravity, but we're gonna see that big time at the end of this week when we return to the planet, Shannon and I, along with our crewmate Fyodor. It is a little bit different on the body. The body feels quite different when you get here to space, and we'll make the same, very similar adjustment when we get back to gravity. It's a great question.
My name is Matthew, and my question is for Shannon Walker. How long did you train before going into space?
Matthew, great question. We actually trained a really long time before going into space. When I first became an astronaut, I trained for 2 years, learning about the shuttle and the space station and learning all the systems. And then when I was assigned to this particular mission, I trained for 3 years before I was finally launched into space.
Thank you.
My name is Alyssa, and my question is for Scott Kelly. What inspired you to become an astronaut?
Well, Alyssa, when I was a kid, it was definitely something I was interested in. You know, like a lot of kids are interested in doing things like, you know, flying in space or, you know, other challenging, you know, endeavors. But it wasn't really until later when I was a pilot in the United States Navy and I became a test pilot that I actually thought it was something that was achievable for me. And, you know, as a pilot in the military, for me, it just seemed like the next most challenging type of flying. And that's when I really got serious about it.
My name is Elizabeth, and my question is for Doug Wheelock. Do you have a telescope on board? And if so, what can you see through it? Thank you.
Hi, Elizabeth. Good question. We do not have a telescope on board, but we have very, very powerful camera lenses and some binoculars and things that we use. Very great. We have a wide range of camera lenses on board, and then at the towards the end of, actually the beginning of next year, there'll be a space shuttle launching with a very powerful telescope on it that will go on the outside of the space station. That'll be used for scientists on the Earth to study our universe. And but on board, we just have very, very powerful cameras that we can see very fine detail on the planet Earth.
I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to spend with our students. Again, this is just fascinating. I look forward to this so much each year. And I have a buddy of yours sitting next to me, Leland Melvin. I wanted him to just say hello to you, and then we'll close out and let you guys get back to work.
Thanks. Hey, Wills, Miss O'Malley, and Scott. It's really great to see you guys up there, and I'm really proud of what you're doing and helping inspire that next generation. So look forward to seeing you back on the ground. I'll have that cheeseburger ready for you when you get back. You guys take care. Have fun.
Okay, thanks, Leland, and to all the students that are there, and the administrative staff and the faculty and teachers that are there. Thank you. Really, really great questions. It was a real pleasure having you on board the space station with us today. And actually, we wanted to do a little bit of a demonstration here. This is a EMU spacesuit, a spacesuit that we use for our spacewalks. And this suit on the planet Earth weighs about 300 to 350 pounds. And so you can see how easy it is to move around here in space. And so our little demonstration with weightlessness in space, but the one thing that we have to remember, very, very important in the ways of science, that although things are weightless, they still have mass, and we have to be very careful as we move large objects like this around, both inside the space station and outside. So whenever you propel an object with a certain force, it's going to take an equal and opposite force to stop that object as well. So sometimes it's a hard lesson to learn as well. But thank you for joining us, and have a great day, and we'll look forward to talking to you next time.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.
Thank you to Secretary of Education Arne Duncan and to participants at the Department of Education in Washington, D.C. Station, please stand by while we reconfigure video and audio communications for Scott's event.